climate change in action. Where glaciers are found, the vast majority of them in the world are retreating. Glacier National Park in Montana will need a new name. We'll be calling it Glacier-less National Park within 20 or 30 years because all the glaciers will be gone. I'm a photographer, and some years ago I was working on a story about climate change, and I realized that in the ice you could see climate change in action. It was the place where you could hear it, touch it, feel it, and see it, and you could bring it to life. It was really the ground zero for this story. While I was on a photo assignment, I visited the Solheim Glacier in Iceland. And that's where I really first understood how climate change was impacting glaciers. There was a real sense of that glacier coming to its end, almost as if it was dying right before my eyes. As someone who is trained in earth sciences and who has been mountaineering for my whole adult life, I never imagined you could see features so big disappearing in such a short period of time. What I saw in the photographs told me that a powerful piece of history was unfolding. So we set up a bunch of cameras around that glacier and took photos. Then we left and returned 6 months later. When we came back, the ice had changed so much I thought I was in the wrong spot. But the pictures were there, telling the true story. And at that point, a light bulb went off in my mind. I realized that these glaciers were a piece of evidence that the world would understand. It testified to the changing landscape and the impact of greenhouse gases and climate change itself. 30 years ago, I was a skeptic about climate change. I thought the science was based on computer models, and I wasn't sure that the computer models were any good. But more importantly, I didn't think that people were capable of changing the basic physics and chemistry of this entire gigantic planet. The emission of greenhouse gases caused by human activity is actually changing the air that we breathe. So how do we know this? Well, ice sheets preserve the story of ancient era. Scientists study ice cores because they contain little bubbles of trapped air from as long ago as 850,000 years. And that can tell us the variation of carbon dioxide over time in this ancient air supply. From ice cores, we can see that even during occasional warming periods, carbon dioxide levels never exceeded 300 parts per million. Then, as in 2015, our air went over 400 parts per million of carbon dioxide. And that change in the air chemistry is causing the Earth to warm and glaciers to melt. Melting glaciers cause rising seas. Warmer oceans fuel stronger hurricanes. Flooding occurs. Inland glacier melt contributes to water and food scarcity. Wildlife disappears. And forest fires are much more common and much more violent. So in 2007, I created the Extreme Ice Survey. I wanted to bring together photography and science to give a visual voice to the Earth's changing ecosystems. We brought together photographic and field assistants, climatologists, glaciologists, and other scientists. We had to develop sensitive photographic equipment that would be able to withstand the coldest and windiest conditions on the planet. We ultimately installed 43 cameras, watching 24 glaciers on 3 continents. Every camera took pictures every daylight hour for more than 10 years. The results are amazing and disturbing. The photographs immediately became a tool scientists used to study climate change. It gave us the visible, tangible evidence we were looking for. We're witnessing massive, geologic scale change in our lifetime, happening right in front of our eyes. The Greenland ice sheet, the second largest mass of ice in the world, is also melting, and all that water is running out to the ocean and raising sea level. In Alaska, the results were just as dramatic. In just 3 years, the Columbia Glacier retreated 2.5 miles, and it's still retreating. Some glaciers terminate in the ocean. And when they do, they can break off these huge icebergs in a process called calving. And what we know today is that in places like Greenland and West Antarctica, the calving is very much on the rise. There's a lot more ice going into the ocean right now. We anticipated that a piece of the Ilulissat Glacier would calve, so the Extreme Ice Survey team staked out a spot, and they camped there, and they just watched 24 hours a day. On day 17 of that glacier watch, from their perch up on the side of the rocks, they became eyewitness to the largest and most astounding calving event ever captured on film. The calving event lasted 75 minutes. To get a sense of the scale of this, imagine a piece of ice equivalent to a big expanse of Chicago, and this whole thing breaking off into Lake Michigan. That piece of ice would be 1.5 times the height of the Willis Tower. That's what went into the ocean in 75 minutes. Climate change is real, and the impact on the ice is visible, it's photographable, it's measured, and it's happening right now, all around us in our lifetime. So I want to be able to tell my children that I was awake, I was alive, I was paying attention, and I was using every skill and every tool that I had with my art form to bear witness to the immediacy and reality of these enormous changes.